welcome back to RPMBassy, countdown of our top 20 all-time favourite albums. We're at number 12. I hope you've liked the previous videos and inspired to go and check out some of the records that we've been speaking about. So for the number 12, I'm going to start this one off. Now this album came out in 1989 on 4AD, which is an inspirational label. So many great records came on that label. And it's the Pixies with Doolittle. I was going to say Monkey's Gone to Heaven, but that's one of the tracks, but it's called Doolittle. This album is just incredible from start to finish. The themes kind of going on this were things like surrealism, biblical violence, torture and death. And it was the first time the photographer and Vaughn and Simon, who used to do all the artwork for them, had access to the album. So the images that you see are actually matched up with the song titles itself. Because on the inner sleeve, they've got the song titles, but they've got the images to match up with some of the lyrics. For instance, like Monkey's Gone to Heaven, you've got the monkey on the front, but they used that for the front cover as well. You've got things like, I don't know what the reference is here, because they've actually gone through some of the lyrics, like, what's the word I just found a minute ago? Gouge away. We've got a spoon and a piece of flesh. I don't know what that reference is, but they've obviously taken that from the song itself. This inspired a lot of kind of bands that you kind of hear now. When they talk about this album, they say, yeah, this is always in their top 10 somewhere, the Doolittle album. It also reached number 8 in the UK charts. And I think it was the first time people really got to hear the Pixies, and then they found their previous albums. And from this point on, they were just like huge. I had... which I'm so grateful for, I DJ'd in Portugal at a festival, and I had to go in between Pixies and Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds, and I was just in awe. And this is probably like late 90s, and they were still doing it. Kim Deal was no longer in the band as well, but she was a big voice in the band, who obviously went on to create the Breeders. Very much this kind of same. The production of this album I thought was insane. The way the drums used to pop on this, they'll just like cut through, and like how the bass was always up front. And Black Francis, his vocals were just incredible, especially on things like Debaser, where he would just start screaming. And then you had the sweet vocals of Kim Deal. There's not one track on here I'll say is an album filler. Every track is a killer. I Bleed. I love the subject matter. You got Monkey's Gone to Heaven, Gouge Away, all of these tracks. So for me, this is definitely at number 12, and it's the Pixies, the Doolittle album. Over the mark.
Nice. I do think actually with that one, like you said, very influential, and I think a lot of sort of bands with that kind of influence, a lot of people would assume that it's other grungy or emo bands that they've kind of picked it up from, but it's almost like they're kind of like your favourite band's favourite band almost.
Yeah.
That's something that I've always thought of the Pixies. They're not underrated, everybody knows them, but especially for newer artists and people who perhaps, are just kind of getting into music, they're one to really
it was
go
kind
back
of pre-grunge, really, wasn't it?
Yeah, they kind of really started a lot of that sound and the emo sound as well. Like there's a lot that you can sort of hear that's kind of come from that sort of era, especially in stuff like Gouge Away. Just like it's quite a brave kind of sound that they would have had at the time, that has clearly then become a lot more popular since.
But I mean, the bands that came out, as I said, you got the Breeders, the Throwing Muses, and all of these kind of bands. And then if you listen to like early, to me, Smashing Pumpkins, definitely, they'd be listening to this album for sure.
Yeah, 100%.
Great album.
So for my pick, I've gone for the album Black Sands by Bonobo. So Bonobo is a British producer. Simon Green is his name. A lot of like trip hop and kind of jazzy kind of sounds that he's made in the past. This album is a 2010 album. It serves as a kind of a good bridge between what he did in the early 2000s moving over to what he does now. A lot of his early stuff is very sort of hip hop influence, very sample based, and he's kind of slowly transitioned over to a lot more of like a electronica chill out, almost like a composer in a way. And this kind of fits that middle ground for me in terms of there's still samples, there's still a lot of esoteric jazzy sounds, but he's, you know, managed to make it a lot more melodic. It doesn't kind of go over your head that I find a lot of jazz stuff can do. And, you know, this one, as with a lot of the stuff that I've, you know, gone through in the previous parts of the list, like the intros are so important for me on albums. They kind of set the mood for this. And track 1, or I guess 1 and 2 in a way, you've got Prelude and Chiara. They're essentially one track for all intents and purposes. And yeah, that's a fantastic way to start the album off. And then, you know, as soon as that finishes, it just flows straight into the third track, Kong, which is a lot more, it's got a world feel to it. There's a lot of trumpets and kind of percussion and stuff like that really, that's where you can sort of hear him kind of mashing up the two sort of halves of his career almost, and sort of shows where he was going without letting down his past almost. And there's a lot of features as well from singer-songwriter Andrea Triana on this. She's got a really, really soulful voice. And for someone who, you know, majority of his music was instrumental, I think adding her onto it is a real stroke of genius. You know, she's on 3 of the tracks on this album, and they're all killer tracks. Like, there's not a bad song on the album at all, but those ones really, really stand out. She's got such a good voice for like quiet vocals. I find a lot of singers, if they sing quietly, you can kind of hear some of the imperfections in their voice, but she's just got such a smooth voice the entire way through, no matter where she is in her register. And it really, really sits well with this album. So yeah, really, really good album.
I've always liked his artwork as well.
Yeah,
there's always a lot of thought gone into it.
Yeah, this is a photo. I can't remember what the reservoir is called, but it's somewhere in the north of England.
Okay.
And I think, you know, it's quite an ambiguous picture in terms of like where it could be taken. This could have been anywhere, but you know, for it to be a photo from England is kind of nice as well. You know, he's based in LA these days, so you would have thought it would have been somewhere in America. But yeah, really, really nice artwork, and I also appreciate the fact that there's no name, no title, nothing. It's just like he's got the confidence with his album. He just wants to present the mood and the feel of it as the album artwork. Really love that.
Cool. Nice one. Join us for the next video, which would be number
11.
11.